Let's talk about the latest video from your man, Bradley Hall. What your favorite metal genre says about you, because as you know, if you've watched any of my videos before, you know that stereotyping is my gift. But I gotta say, Bradley's pretty good at it too, but we'll see. We'll see who the true master of stereotyping is by the time we get to the end of this video. It's only 2.5 minutes long, so we'll see how many he can get through. First up, we have death metal.
Death metal. After a tough day at work, nothing unwinds you more than slipping into your favorite SpongeBob dressing gown and listening to Altars of Madness while chilling with your cats.
Okay, I have a few things to say here about death metal. Number one, it is interesting to me. It's interesting to me how there's this dichotomy between, like, you know, death metal people. They have this interesting self-image where they're like, I am very badass. You know, they all think they're like this guy from, you know, Metalocalypse or whatever. It's like, you know, this balance of like all this badass imagery, but then at the same time, they're like, they think it's clever that like, oh, I listen to Cannibal Corpse, but I also like cats. But it's more like, it's not that you're a sweetheart, it's like you're a child, you know, because they're into stuff like the pro wrestling and the comic books. And, you know, you can imagine that people who are into death metal are also really into like collecting N64 games. Right? It's more like like a grown child kind of thing. And that's on the high end. The low end, I was going to say, when I think of death metal, you know, I think of this. I think of this. Shoes for crews, you know, these like unbranded black shoes that you have to wear, like if you work at McDonald's or something like that. Yeah, the non-slip shoes. That's what I think. I feel like Bradley is being much more charitable than I am with, you know, the cat thing, although that's true. I'm sorry. I love death metal. It's one of my favorite genres of all time. But when I think of death metal, I just think of, just going to say it, losers, right? It's a loser genre. Like, there's nobody who's listening to death metal that's like really crushing it at their career. I should say maybe just lower achievers. Let's put it that way. They just want their cats. They want to collect their N64 games. As long as they make enough money to afford the new WWE pay-per-view, they're happy. Anyway, that's what I think about death metal. Let's see what else he has to say.
Thrash metal. You actually hate beer, but don't want to ruin your thrash party boy image, so you empty all your beer cans before a show and fill them with Ribena instead.
I'm not British, so I don't know what Ribena is, but it's very interesting to me, like, the fact that thrash still has as much currency as it does is very interesting to me and bizarre. Because I started listening to metal in like 1990, right? Even back then, I thought it was a little bit kind of like played out, you know, the kind of people that were into like Metallica with like the denim vests and, you know, the scraggly mustaches and all that. Even back in 1990, you know, when I was 12 years old, I was like, oh, that's a little bit like they're still doing that like 80s thing. It felt a little bit behind the times back then. And that was almost 35 years ago. Now, listen, I like thrash metal just as much as the next guy, probably more actually. I'm a certified thrash elitist, and I'll tell you why. Because in my opinion, Megadeth, terrible, Metallica, mid, Slayer is great, Anthrax is great, but the real premium thrash is stuff like Believer, Forced Entry, The Accused, Coroner, stuff like that. Like, that's the real like top tier thrash that was coming out like towards the end of the time where it was relevant. Yeah, Blame, Havoc, Municipal Waste, Gamma Bomb, etc. It's true. I really blame Municipal Waste for all of this, and it's not, and Municipal Waste is a good band, but I really do blame a lot of this. But it became a genre of cosplaying. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's my thoughts on thrash. It's like your thrash party boy image. I'll tell you what real party boys listen to is fucking Drake. That's what real party boys listen to. They don't listen to fucking Megadeth and Municipal Waste.
Prog metal. Your friends made a blood pact never to pass you the aux cable at parties, as you always insist on killing the vibe with 30-minute long Dream Theater epics.
Well, I mean, it's easy to pick on the prog metal fans, as I have many times. But when I think of prog metal, I think of two kinds of people. Number one is losers, sort of like the death metal people, you know, the cargo shorts and work boots kind of guys that are like these like really intelligent losers, if that makes sense. There's that sort of person. But when I think of prog metal, actually, my honest opinion is that prog metal fans are the least cringe metal fans as a group, because when I think of prog metal fans, I think of like a lot of the people. I used to work in South Lake Union in Seattle, right in the middle of all the Amazon buildings. And you would always see like Amazon engineers walking around in like periphery and between the Buried and Me shirts and stuff like that. I went to go see this gent band a couple years ago, and like one of the guys there was like a director of engineering at Twitch. Like that's what I think of when I think of prog metal fans is actually like they're kind of dorky, but they're pretty well-adjusted people that tend to have like good careers in like science and, you know, in STEM fields and stuff like that. So you do run into your prog losers, but overall I have a high opinion of prog metal fans.
New metal. There will be many puzzled looks from your family members at your funeral when it's revealed that all your tombstone says is, "I did it all for the nookie."
I'll tell you what I think of now. So we used to think of nu metal fans as sort of the stereotypical, you know, kid with the Jankos and the Mountain Dew or whatever. That's what we used to think of as the nu metal fans. But now those fans are all grown up. And now the nu metal fan of 2001 has now become this. This is the nu metal fan of 2023. Someone mentioned Mudvayne. When someone plays the Berber Ding, they do this. I swear to God, man, it blows my mind that Mudvayne, of all things, has been retconned as like credible music. Back in 2001, if you were to ever suggest that Mudvayne was like decent music, you would have been like excommunicated from the scene. And now it's the exact opposite. Yeah, Linkin Park enjoyers are the exception. That's true. Now it's the exact opposite. If you don't soy face for Mudvayne, somehow you're the poser now. What a time to be alive.
Viking metal. You tried to make mead in your bathtub once, but accidentally used glue instead of honey, resulting in some very ill guests at your solstice party.
Viking metal. Now, this is something that, thank God, one of the best things about America is that we are geographically protected from so many undesirable things in the world. For example, Europeans. We've got a whole ocean in between us and Europe. So I have no opinion of Viking metal fans because I've never met one in my life, because the Atlantic Ocean protects me from them. And for that, I'm grateful. Bradley Hall, I'll take your word for it. I hope to never have an opinion of Viking metal fans. That's what I think.
Glam metal. You once forgot to remove the TV remote you always have stuffed down your spandex pants before going through airport security, leading to an extremely uncomfortable encounter with the Portuguese border guard.
Glam metal is another genre that it's interesting to me how many people still like think about and talk about. Interesting how many people now, again, like have retconned hair metal as being good music. I have always thought fairly highly of hair metal because the one thing about hair metal is the guys in these bands were extremely good musicians, total like airhead douchebags, but extremely good musicians. But I'll say the people that are into glam metal now or hair metal, it's kind of cringe. You know, the kind of people that like really take it very seriously and want you to know like how good Winger is. It's like, oh, come on, guys, let's move on.
Goth metal. You actually think the music's trash. You only pretend to like it to pick up hot European goth girls on Instagram.
Hey, if so, fair enough. I'll say this: if there's a lady in your life and you would like to touch her boobies, whatever she likes, you should just say that you like it too. And if she's into terrible stuff like goth metal, just say you like it too. If she likes Nightwish and Amaranth, God knows why she would, but if she does, just go with it. Just whatever she says she likes, you just say you like it too, okay? Never let your taste in music lead to you fumbling the baddie. That's my advice. Even if it's black metal, literally anything. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. So I say, if you're one of the people Bradley Hall's talking about here, fair game, carry on.
Grindcore. You actually think the music's trash. You only pretend to like it to scrounge free ketamine off that weird Antifa guy down the pub.
Tell you what, grindcore fans, man, there's an interesting bunch. Grindcore fans, in my view, now listen, I started getting into grindcore way back in the day, back in like probably like the early 90s, 92, 93, something like that, when I heard Napalm Death and AC, the band that I can't say on YouTube or the video will get demonetized. Grindcore fans are all over the place. It's kind of true. There's nerds that are into grindcore, but when I think of your classic grindcore fan, I think of the kind of guy that collects VHS porn. Like you go over to his house for some reason and just from floor to ceiling, he's got like hundreds and hundreds of like old school, you know, VHS tapes in like the cardboard box, like stacked from floor to ceiling. And maybe he has some memorabilia, like a signed picture of, fucking Tara Patrick or whoever, on the wall. And he takes it very seriously. Not just a porn historian, a porn documentarian. How about that? He'll tell you with a straight face, like, this art form's dying, man. And if people like us don't preserve it and don't document it, then before we know it, this stuff's just going to get lost. And I can't let that happen, man. I can't let that happen.
Groove metal. Your ass hair is so excessively long, you have to take extra special care when cutting the grass.
I mean, here's the thing with groove metal, with the exception of Pantera, which obviously, the creators of groove metal. But when we're talking about, Devil Driver, Machine Head, Soulfly, stuff like that, have you ever met anybody in your life that actually likes that stuff? I was talking to a friend of mine a couple years ago about this. Like, Machine Head came up and I was like, oh man, that's crazy that, Machine Head has millions of streams on this song or whatever. And he's like, I know, man. Have you ever heard anybody in your entire life that's a Machine Head fan? And I was like, no, I haven't. My sister's ex liked Devil Driver a lot. See, that can't be true. That can't be true because I've never met anybody that liked Devil Driver. So either you're remembering wrong, or you're hallucinating, or your sister's ex was lying to you, because groove metal fans do not exist. That's the problem. It's a psyop. Doesn't exist.
As to not catch it in the mower. Tech Death. Your favourite book ever is the official tab book for Archspire's Bleed the Future album, followed closely by The Very Hungry Caterpillar.
Tech Death fans are the kind of people who are very into From Software games. Like, they're the kind of people that play every video game on like the absolute hardest difficulty. The kind of people that are really into PC games because they can mod every game. Like, oh, I installed this mod that makes every enemy have 50 times more hit points than usual. If you don't, drink a flask of water every 10 seconds in the game, you die. And I also got an 8-string guitar so that I can play, so that I can learn all these like incredibly difficult songs. Like, why do you want to play life on hard mode? Not only that, it's like, because absolutely nobody makes any money on Tech Death other than Archspire. Shout out to my friends in Archspire, great band. The only band that makes a fucking dime off of Tech Death. So it's like, playing Tech Death is like playing life, or being a Tech Death musician is like playing life on nightmare mode difficulty. And if you win, the prize is like 50 cents. That's what I think about Tech Death. If you like Tech Death, that's cool, but just why play life on nightmare difficulty?
Folk metal. Finding out you could change your Facebook language settings to English pirate was the best day of your life.
Once again, I'm grateful that I live in America, where I'm completely isolated from folk metal. I've never interacted with a folk metaler. I hope I never do. I agree with that. You can like it. You can like folk metal, just not around me. We need to have a folk metal conversion camp. That's what I think.
It's all been downhill since then. Metalcore. The genre of metalcore has become so broad and diverse that you don't even know what bands count as it anymore. All you know is that you just love a good moist breakdown.
Well, we know what metalcore is now. Metalcore used to be what he's saying. It used to be so broad and diverse. But now we know metalcore just means you got 3 things you can count on. You can count on a shitty gent riff in the verse. You can count on a shitty attempt at being Linkin Park in the chorus. You can count on an extremely predictable breakdown 3/4 of the way into the song. And the 4th thing you can count on is that the video is going to have a bunch of guys in motorcycle jackets genting in an LED lit room. I'm sorry, but metalcore has become the absolute most formulaic, predictable, uninteresting genre of metal. I'm sorry. Like, in a way, I'm just going to say it, in a way, metalcore might even be more cringe and predictable now than shit like, folk metal and Viking metal and shit like that. It's over, people. It's over. Metalcore officially over. You heard it here right now. It's done. I banned it. Listen, I'm going to get on the phone right now. He's calling me right now. I can't take the call because I'm on stream, but Obama's calling me right now. He's been telling me for years that he wanted to ban metalcore, and I kept saying, listen, Barry, come on, just give him a chance. Give him a chance. They're going to come around. It hasn't happened. Obama gave you all the chances in the world. You blew it.
Sludge metal. You've smoked so much green, you're convinced that John Lennon has risen from the dead and is plotting to steal your Tupperware.
Sludge metal is like, man, like if you're into sludge metal, I'm not even joking. You legitimately should seek professional help because you are almost certainly like clinically depressed and very likely that you're self-medicating, you know, for sure with weed and alcohol. But like sludge metal people, man, it's the kind of people, I'll put it this way. The person who got me into I Hate God back in the 90s worked at a hospital and he stole painkillers. Like he stole Dilaudid from the hospital. That's what we're talking about with sludge metal. At the high end, it's people who use weed and alcohol to like numb themselves from the pain of life. But with sludge metal, it gets to the point where you're like, okay, you may end up like stealing copper wire out of your mom's basement to like buy opiates. That's what we're talking about with sludge metal. Genuinely concerns me. Genuinely. I'm not even joking. Sludge metal people, if you like acid bath, seek professional help.
Industrial metal. Your dress sense is somewhere between Neo from the Matrix and a Nazi SS general. And you always wear long sleeves to cover up the awful Power Man 5000 tattoo you gave yourself as a teenager.
Excuse me. That's a very well done Power Man 5000 tattoo. Excuse me. How dare you?
Melodeath. Your wardrobe definitely includes these.
See, here's what I like is Bradley being European. His take on Melodeath, you know, I think of it as like Black Dahlia Murder or something like that, me being American, but he's thinking of it as like Arch Enemy, all these like Vakken bands. And I like it. I think he's right. He's right. It is a European genre at the end of the day. And will they even let you on stage at Vakken without these pants? I don't think so. Otherwise, they're like, I'm sorry, but there's a dress code. I don't care if you got a AAA pass. There's a dress code here. Without the pants, can't let you on stage.
Power metal. Your wardrobe definitely includes these.
The gauntlet. Okay. I like this. I would wear a gauntlet if I had one. I'm on board with that. You're allowed to like power metal if you actually wear your gauntlet.
Deathcore. You're thoroughly tired of drunk people trying to poke various objects through your oversized ear stretchers. Well, tough. It's amusing.
It is amusing. And it's also interesting to me that those are still around. You remember back in the MySpace days, you know, when everyone stretched their ears and we thought it was just a trend that was going to come and go. It came, it never went. Interestingly, it never went. It's still here. But I will say the deathcore people now, I think there's two kinds of deathcore people now. There's kind of the TikTok people who are like the new scene kids, and I'm okay with them. I'm all right with the TikTok kids getting into deathcore. The other kind of deathcore people are the Reddit ones. The Reddit beard type people who are just the new version of like death metal nerds. And those are the ones that I'm not on board with. Yeah, TikTokers are welcome. The Reddit deathcore people, you gotta go.
Doom metal. Your loved ones have had to resort to learning semaphore to communicate with you due to your eardrums being so severely...
Speaking of people who self-medicate with weed and alcohol, doom metal potentially, I would say if there's a hierarchy of metal genres that make me think you need a psychiatric intervention, sludge metal number 1, grindcore probably number 2, doom metal number 3, I think. That's where I would place it on the hierarchy of like genres that if you like them, I'm worried about you.
Traditional metal. You can't wait to be the only guy in an Eddie Munson costume not wearing a wig at this year's office Halloween party. This will be the best shot you'll ever have at making out with Linda from accounting.
I don't get it. Why would anybody in the current year still be listening to like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and Black Sabbath? I mean, those are all great bands, but it's literally not 1978 anymore. It's time to move on, people. It's time to move on.
Black metal. You hate it when your fat little nephew visits your apartment and rubs his sticky chocolate-covered hands all over your rare Dark Throne cassette tapes.
All right, fair enough. Another good video from your man, Bradley Hall. Make sure to drop him a sub if you haven't. And Bradley, if you ever want safety from the power metalers, the folk metalers, the Viking metalers, you're welcome here in my country anytime, where the great, majestic Atlantic Ocean will protect you from them. Come seek the safety of America.